Ladies and gentlemen, one decision separates the life you have from the life you dream about. And it's this: will you force yourself to improve, or will you stay stuck where you are? Comfort is one of the most dangerous places a person can live in, not because it feels bad, but because it feels too good. It wraps itself around your routine in a way that makes everything seem fine, even when deep down you know you are capable of much more. The trap of comfort is subtle. It doesn't shout or demand attention. Instead, it whispers softly, telling you that you can take a break today, that you deserve to relax a little longer, that there is always tomorrow to start. And while those thoughts seem harmless in the moment, they slowly build a pattern that keeps you exactly where you are. People often believe they are stuck because they lack talent, resources, or opportunities. But in reality, many are simply unwilling to step outside what feels easy and familiar. Comfort convinces you that staying the same is safer than risking failure. It makes you believe that avoiding discomfort is a form of protection, when in truth, it is a form of limitation. Growth, by its very nature, demands friction. It asks you to do things that feel unnatural at first, to push beyond habits that have defined you for years, and to face the uncertainty that comes with change. The problem is that comfort creates an illusion of progress. You might feel busy, you might feel occupied, but if your actions are not challenging you, they are not changing you. There is a difference between movement and progress, and comfort often keeps you moving in circles rather than moving forward. You wake up, follow the same routine, think the same thoughts, make the same choices, and then wonder why nothing in your life is evolving. It is not because you are incapable. It is because you are repeating patterns that keep you in the same place. What makes comfort even more powerful is that it justifies itself. It tells you that you need rest when what you really need is discipline. It tells you that you should wait until you feel ready, even though readiness rarely comes before action. It tells you that you have time, without reminding you that time is constantly slipping away. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to settle. You lower your expectations, you adjust your dreams, and you start to accept a version of life that is far below your potential. Breaking out of comfort is not about making one big, dramatic change. It is about making small, consistent decisions that go against what feels easy. It is choosing to act even when your mind resists. It is waking up earlier when your body asks for more sleep, focusing when distractions are more appealing, and continuing when quitting feels justified. These moments may seem insignificant on their own, but over time, they reshape who you are. There is also a deeper fear behind comfort, and that is the fear of failure. Many people would rather stay in a place where they feel secure than risk stepping into the unknown and possibly falling short. But what they fail to see is that staying comfortable is its own form of failure. It is a slow and silent one, where nothing collapses suddenly, but everything remains just as it is, day after day, year after year. When you begin to challenge comfort, you start to rediscover your potential. You realize that you are capable of more than you allowed yourself to believe. You start to build confidence, not from thinking positively, but from proving to yourself through action that you can do hard things. And with each step outside your comfort zone, what once felt difficult begins to feel normal. Comfort will always be there, offering you an easier path, a softer choice, a delay instead of a decision. But every time you choose comfort over growth, you are choosing to stay in the same place while life continues to move forward without you. Growth requires daily discipline. And that is where most people struggle, not because they don't want success, but because they misunderstand what it takes to achieve it. Discipline is often seen as something extreme, something reserved for highly motivated individuals. But in reality, it is built in the small, ordinary moments that no one sees. It is not about making one big decision that changes everything overnight, but about making the right decision repeatedly, especially when it feels inconvenient or uncomfortable. The challenge with discipline is that it rarely feels good in the moment. Motivation can feel exciting and powerful, but it is temporary. It comes and goes depending on your mood, your environment, and your energy. Discipline, on the other hand, is steady. It shows up even when you are tired, distracted, or uninspired. It is the ability to act according to your goals instead of your feelings, and that is what separates those who grow from those who remain the same. Every day presents you with choices, and most of them seem small and insignificant. Whether to wake up early or hit snooze, whether to work on your goals or scroll through your phone, whether to stay focused or give in to distractions. These decisions may not feel important in the moment, but they accumulate over time. Discipline is not about one perfect day. It is about the consistency of these choices over weeks, months, and years. It is the quiet repetition of effort that builds momentum and leads to transformation. One of the biggest misconceptions about discipline is that it requires perfection. People often think that if they miss one day or make one mistake, they have failed. But discipline is not about being perfect. It is about being persistent. It is about returning to your path even after you have stepped away from it. The difference between someone who grows and someone who stays stuck is not that one never fails, but that one refuses to give up after failing. Discipline also demands clarity. You cannot be disciplined about something you do not fully understand or value. When your goals are vague, your actions become inconsistent. But when you have a clear vision of what you want and why you want it, discipline becomes easier to maintain. It gives your actions direction and purpose, turning effort into something meaningful rather than something forced. Another important aspect of discipline is sacrifice. You cannot have everything at the same time. Choosing growth means letting go of certain comforts, distractions, and habits that no longer serve you. It means saying no to things that are easy in order to say yes to things that matter. This is where many people hesitate because sacrifice feels like loss. But in reality, it is an investment. You are giving up something temporary for something lasting. Over time, discipline begins to shape your identity. At first, it feels like effort. You have to push yourself, remind yourself, and sometimes even force yourself. But as you continue, those actions become part of who you are. You no longer have to convince yourself to do the work because it becomes natural. You become someone who follows through, someone who shows up, someone who does what needs to be done, regardless of how you feel. There is also a sense of freedom that comes with discipline, which may seem contradictory at first. People often think discipline is restrictive, but it actually creates space in your life. When you are disciplined, you have control over your time, your habits, and your direction. You are not constantly reacting to impulses or distractions. Instead, you are intentionally moving toward your goals. The reality is that growth is not about intensity, it is about consistency. You do not need to do everything perfectly, but you need to do something every day. Even small progress is still progress as long as it is repeated. Discipline ensures that you keep moving forward even when progress feels slow or invisible. In the end, discipline is a choice that you make daily, not once, but again and again. It is built in the moments when no one is watching, in the decisions that seem too small to matter, but ultimately define your path. Because without discipline, growth remains just an idea instead of becoming a reality. Your life reflects your choices, and this truth is both empowering and uncomfortable at the same time. It is empowering because it means you have control, but it is uncomfortable because it removes the excuses you often rely on. Many people like to believe that their life is shaped by luck, circumstances, or other people, and while those factors can influence your path, they do not define it. What truly defines your life are the decisions you make every single day, especially the small ones that seem too insignificant to matter. It is easy to focus on big moments, the major turning points, the once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, but life is not built in those moments. It is built in the quiet, repetitive choices that happen daily. The decision to wake up on time or stay in bed a little longer, to work on your goals or delay them, to stay focused or give in to distractions. These choices may feel harmless in isolation, but over time, they compound into patterns, and those patterns shape your reality. One of the biggest illusions people live with is believing that intentions are enough. You can have the best intentions in the world, you can plan, dream, and visualize your ideal life, but none of that changes anything unless it is backed by action. Intentions make you feel good, but actions are what create results. There is a gap between what you want and what you do, and your life exists in that gap. If your actions do not align with your goals, your life will always reflect what you do. not what you wish for. This is where honesty becomes essential. It is easy to say you want success, but your daily habits reveal the truth. If your actions are inconsistent, if you prioritize comfort over progress, if you avoid challenges instead of facing them, then your results will reflect that. Your life is not responding to your words. It is responding to your behavior. And behavior is a direct result of the choices you make, moment by moment. Another important thing to understand is that choices are not always dramatic or obvious. Often, they are subtle and automatic. You choose how you spend your time, how you respond to challenges, how you treat yourself, and how you treat others. You choose whether to learn or stay the same, whether to grow or remain comfortable. Even choosing not to decide is a decision in itself, and it still shapes your life. The reason many people feel stuck is not because they are making one wrong choice, but because they are repeating the same choices over and over again. Familiar habits feel safe even when they are holding you back. You may not notice it at first, but consistency in the wrong direction leads to stagnation. Just as positive habits can build a better life, negative habits can quietly build a life you do not want. At the same time, this truth gives you incredible power. If your life is a reflection of your choices, then changing your choices means changing your life. You do not need to wait for a perfect opportunity or a major breakthrough. You can start where you are with what you have by making better decisions today. Even small changes, when repeated consistently, can create a completely different outcome over time. It is also important to understand that not every choice will lead to immediate results. Some decisions take time to show their impact, and that can be frustrating. You might be doing the right things, but not seeing instant progress. This is where patience becomes important. Just because you cannot see the results yet does not mean your choices are not working. Growth often happens beneath the surface before it becomes visible. There is also responsibility in this idea. When you accept that your life reflects your choices, you stop blaming others and start focusing on what you can control. This does not mean ignoring challenges or pretending everything is easy, but it means refusing to let those challenges define your future. Instead of asking why something is happening to you, you begin to ask what you can do about it. Over time, your choices shape your identity. You become what you repeatedly do. If you consistently choose discipline, you become disciplined. If you consistently choose avoidance, you become someone who avoids. Identity is not something you are born with. It is something you build through your actions. And once your identity changes, your life naturally follows. Every moment gives you an opportunity to make a different choice, to move in a different direction, to become a different version of yourself. The question is not whether you have the ability to change, but whether you are willing to take responsibility for the choices that will lead you there. Because at the end of the day, your life will always mirror what you consistently choose to do rather than what you simply hope will happen. Improvement is uncomfortable, and that is exactly why most people avoid it, even when they know it is necessary. Discomfort is not something we are naturally drawn to. From a young age, we are conditioned to seek ease, stability, and familiarity. We are taught to avoid pain, to stay safe, to protect ourselves from anything that feels uncertain. But growth does not exist in comfort, and the moment you decide to improve your life, you are also deciding to step into spaces that feel unfamiliar and challenging. The discomfort of growth shows up in many ways. Sometimes it is physical, like waking up earlier than you are used to or pushing your body beyond its usual limits. Sometimes it is mental, like focusing when your mind wants distraction or learning something new that feels difficult at first. And often it is emotional, like facing your fears, letting go of old habits, or stepping into situations where you might fail. These forms of discomfort can feel overwhelming, and your instinct will always be to retreat back to what feels easy. What makes discomfort so powerful is that it tests your commitment. It forces you to decide whether you truly want change or if you only like the idea of it. Anyone can say they want to improve, but not everyone is willing to go through the process that improvement requires. Because the truth is, growth demands sacrifice. You cannot become a better version of yourself while holding on to the same behaviors, the same mindset, and the same routines that kept you in your current position. There is also a level of uncertainty that comes with improvement. When you step outside your comfort zone, there are no guarantees. You might fail, you might struggle, and you might not see immediate results. This uncertainty creates fear, and fear often leads people to stay where they are. It convinces them that it is better to remain in a known situation, even if it is limiting, rather than risk stepping into the unknown. But what they fail to realize is that staying the same is also a risk, just a slower and less obvious one. Discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that something is changing. It is an indication that you are stretching beyond your current limits, that you are challenging the version of yourself that has been comfortable for too long. Without discomfort, there is no growth, because growth requires adaptation, and adaptation only happens when you are pushed beyond what is familiar. One of the biggest shifts you can make is changing how you perceive discomfort. Instead of seeing it as something to avoid, you begin to see it as something to seek, not because it feels good, but because it leads to something greater. When you start associating discomfort with progress, it loses its power to stop you. It becomes a signal that you are moving in the right direction rather than a warning to turn back. It is also important to understand that discomfort does not last forever. What feels difficult today will eventually become easier with repetition. The first time you try something new, it may feel awkward, slow, and frustrating. But as you continue, your mind and body adapt. What once felt uncomfortable begins to feel normal. And that is when growth becomes visible. The discomfort you experience is temporary, but the results it creates can be long-lasting. Another challenge with improvement is that it often requires you to separate yourself from what is familiar, not just in habits, but sometimes in people and environments. Growth may mean outgrowing certain conversations, certain routines, or even certain relationships that no longer align with who you are trying to become. This can feel lonely at times, and that loneliness is another form of discomfort that many people are not prepared for. But within that discomfort, there is also strength. Every time you choose to keep going despite the difficulty, you build resilience. You prove to yourself that you are capable of handling more than you thought. You develop confidence, not from success alone, but from the willingness to face challenges head on. This kind of confidence is deeper and more lasting because it is built through experience rather than assumption. Improvement is not meant to be easy, because if it were, everyone would achieve it without effort. The difficulty is what makes it valuable. It is what separates those who wish for change from those who create it. And while discomfort may slow you down at times, it should never be the reason you stop, because on the other side of that discomfort is a version of yourself that is stronger, wiser, and far more capable than the one you are today. Delaying change is one of the most silent yet destructive habits a person can develop, because it does not feel harmful in the moment. It feels harmless to say, "I'll start tomorrow," or "I just need a little more time." But what most people fail to realize is that delay is not neutral. Every time you postpone a decision that could improve your life, you are not simply standing still. You are reinforcing the very patterns that are keeping you stuck. Over time, these delays accumulate, and what once felt like a small pause becomes a permanent state of inaction. The mind is incredibly skilled at justifying delay. It creates reasons that sound logical and even responsible. It tells you that you are not ready yet, that the timing is not right, that you should wait until you feel more confident or more prepared. But readiness is often an illusion. Most people never feel completely ready to take a big step, and if you wait for that feeling, you may wait forever. Growth does not come from feeling ready. It comes from acting despite not feeling ready. Every excuse you make, no matter how reasonable it sounds, has a cost. That cost is not always visible immediately, which is why it is so easy to ignore. You may not notice the impact of one missed opportunity, one delayed action, or one avoided challenge. But when these moments repeat, they begin to shape your life in a very real way. They create a pattern of hesitation, and hesitation turns into habit. Before you know it, you are someone who constantly delays, constantly waits, constantly tells yourself that you will start later. One of the most dangerous aspects of delay is that it slowly lowers your standards. At first, you may have high expectations for yourself. You may have clear goals and a strong desire to achieve them. But with each delay, those expectations begin to fade. You start to accept less from yourself, not because you want to, but because you have become used to not following through. This is how regret begins to form, not as a sudden realization, but as a gradual acceptance of a life that is below your potential. Regret is rarely about the things you tried and failed at. More often, it is about the things you never tried at all. It is about the chances you didn't take, the risks you avoided, and the changes you postponed. When you look back, you don't think about how comfortable you were in those moments of delay. You think about what could have been different if you had acted. This is why delay is so costly, because it robs you of possibilities that you may never get back. There is also a psychological weight that comes with delaying change. Every time you tell yourself you will do something and then don't follow through, you weaken your trust in yourself. You begin to doubt your own words, your own commitments. This lack of self-trust affects every area of your life, because if you cannot rely on yourself, it becomes difficult to move forward with confidence. On the other hand, when you take action, even small action, you start to rebuild that trust. You prove to yourself that your decisions mean something. Another reason people delay change is because they underestimate the power of time. They assume that they have more of it than they actually do. They believe that they can always start later, that there will always be another opportunity. But time does not wait. It moves forward regardless of whether you are ready or not. Every day that passes is a day you cannot get back. And while one day may not seem significant, years are made up of those days. The longer you delay, the harder it becomes to catch up.